Hello everyone. I welcome you all in this Learning Saturday session. Yes. So good morning to all. I, Devashri Hingne, working as a senior software engineer at Mindbrowser, welcome you all in this Learning Saturday session on Vue.js. Before going towards the session, I would like to introduce one of our presenters. So she's Rashmi Yadav, and she is also working as a software engineer at Mindbrowser. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now we will see just the agenda, like what all points we are going to cover today in this session. So we are going to cover the introduction, then we will see why to choose Vue.js, then we will see the difference between Vue, Angular, and React. Then we will see the installation steps, creating an application, options API and composition API, how Vue.js application renders, then template syntax, reactivity fundamentals. Then we will see the very important topic, that is state management. Then we will see the demo implementation, the takeaways, and the final curtain. Okay, let's begin. So before going towards the session, we should have the prerequisites, like we should have the basic knowledge of JavaScript or to the intermediate level. Then we should also have the knowledge of TypeScript. Okay, so basic knowledge of TypeScript. Then the HTML and CSS. Also, if we want to install the Vue.js in our machine, we should have Node.js installed in our machines. Okay, let's see what is Vue.js. So basically, Vue.js is a JavaScript framework which is used to build the UIs. Okay, and it has the component-based programming model. So basically, any file in this Vue.js having the extension .vue is a component. Okay, which is combined with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, in this component actually. We are dividing this component into the three sections, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, where HTML is written in template tag. Okay, CSS is written in style tag, and all the JavaScript code is written in script tag. Okay, you can create this UI by using Vue.js. Okay, simple UIs, or maybe you can develop the efficient user interfaces. Now the question arises, why to choose Vue.js? So basically, if you have the basic knowledge of JavaScript, you can always go with Vue.js because it is easy to learn. You can easily cope up with Vue.js. Okay, it also provides the reactivity, that is two-way data binding. Okay, where you are binding your data into the HTML, and whatever property is getting updated or data is getting updated, it will be easily gets updated on the template set, that is HTML set. Then reusable components. So basically, if you have multiple functions or variables that are used commonly in multiple components, then we can create a shareable component and we can import those in the multiple components and reuse them. Okay, so now here comes the concept, that is virtual DOM. And this virtual DOM actually, most of us has heard this concept, that is virtual DOM. So can anyone answer what is virtual DOM in the chat section? So maybe if it is new for you, then virtual DOM is nothing but the visual representation of UI. Okay, so which is, where all the template or the JavaScript, renders with a DOM tree, and it is represented it is represented virtually, and now then it is synced with the real DOM. Okay, so because of this virtual DOM, rendering of application becomes faster, and so now most of the technologies or most of the frameworks are using virtual DOM. Okay, so now we will see the difference between Vue, Angular, and React. So basically, when here the question arises, like if both the React and Vue are using the virtual DOM, then why we should choose Vue over React? Okay, or maybe Angular. So basically, the basic difference is Angular and Vue are the frameworks, and React is a library. Okay, and the source language for Angular is TypeScript, whereas for React and Vue we are using JavaScript. As Vue and React uses the virtual DOM, it is lightweight and fast, whereas Angular is a bit slower than React and Vue because it uses the real DOM. Okay, and architecture-wise, Angular uses the template-based architecture, and React and Vue uses the component-based architecture. The very important difference is, like Angular and Vue are the framework, so it has a complete package of built-in state management. Okay, so for that, Angular uses NGRX and Vue uses Vuex. Okay, but as React is a library, we need to use Redux to use state management. Okay, so for Angular and React, it is recommended that we can use large and small applications both. We can create large and small applications, but for Vue it is recommended that we can create the small applications. So reason behind this is that the community for Vue is not that much big as we compare with Angular and React. Okay, so the developer team is also not that much big. So if you need any assistance and if you are trying to create a large project or large application, then in that case there may be some issue with, or maybe there can be some lack of assistance. Okay, but otherwise Vue is very easy and very user friendly with if we want to create a application. So let's see the steps to install the Vue.js. So as I've mentioned that Node.js should be installed in the machine if you want to install the Vue.js. So you just need to hit the command, that is npm install -g @Vue CLI. Okay, so this will install your Vue.js in your machines. And if you want to check if we have installed the right version of Vue.js, then you just need to hit the command, that is Vue ---- version. I request Rashmi to continue with the further steps.
So moving on to the next slide. So how can we create an application in Vue.js? So basically, to create any application in Vue.js, you need to provide your project name that is prefixed with Vue create. Okay. So here we have taken the name as first Vue app, and it is prefixed with Vue create. Okay. So quickly hit this command, and then you will get a particular set of options. Okay. So whether you want to go with Vue 3 default, whether you want to go with Vue 2 default, or you want to manually select the features. Okay, so you can go with any which ways you want according to your preference, and then wait for the project to be generated, and then enter on the project by hitting cd. So hit the command, that is cd and your project name, and then open the project generated project in any editor that you prefer, and then to run the project and to see if it's working properly or not, run the command, that is npm run serve. Okay, and then after that hit the port, that is localhost 8080. So when you will hit this particular port, you will see the project will be running smoothly. Okay, so moving on to the next, there's a comparison between options API versus composition API. So let me clear this one thing to you, that is options API and composition API. So these both are two different approaches to organize and manage our code in our components. Okay, so both APIs serve different purposes for different use cases. So the first point that covers the options API is the traditional way of building Vue components, and it has been the primary method for building components in Vue since its inception. Rather, composition API is a set of API that allows us to author Vue components using imported functions instead of declaring options. And the second point states that options API uses options like data, methods, and mounted. And with composition API, we have a single setup hook in which we write our reactive code. So basically, what happens in options API, it involves defining our component using a series of options. Okay, inside a single object. So we get data, computed, method, watch, lifecycle hooks, props. Okay, and what happens in composition API, we have a single setup hook. We define that, and inside the uh, script setup hook, we can use our APIs, we can define our methods and everything. So this is the theoretical explanation. Moving on to the next slide, we can see the code level structural differences. So that is in the first section we can see composition API, and in the second section we can see options API section. So before comparison between these things, let's see the structure of our component. So this is the basic structure of any Vue component. Inside script section, we can write our JavaScript code. Okay, whatever logic you have, business logic, it will be injected inside the script section. Then we have a template section. So inside the template section, we write our HTML. Okay, and then in style section, we write our styling. Okay, so this is the basic structure of any Vue.js component. and then moving on to the compositions versus options. So this is the structural difference. Okay, inside the composition, what we are doing, we are defining the setup, and inside setup, we are importing some methods and lifecycle hooks, and we are defining our states, methods, and lifecycle hook also. And inside options, what we are doing, we have a data is a method, and that is returning an object. And here we can see our method, and here we can see mounted. Okay, so this is the lifecycle hook basically. So this is how the uh, structural difference between composition and options API work. So basically, when we use composition API, it encourages us better reusability and makes it easier to extract and share logic between the components. Okay, so also, composition API has been introduced in Vue 3 only. It was not introduced since earlier phases of Vue.js. So when Vue.js was introduced, there was only one approach, that is options API. Moving on to the next slide, how Vue.js application renders. So as Devashri also mentioned in previous slides, that Vue.js uses VDOM, that is virtual DOM. Okay, so what happens? The virtual representation of UI is kept in the memory, and that is synced with the real DOM. Okay. So what is the rendering pipeline? So this is the basic rendering pipeline. That is, we have compile. So basically, what happens are uh, components are compiled into render function, which returns the VDOM trees. Okay, that is virtual DOM trees. And then there is something we have mount. So runtime render invokes the render function, through the virtual DOM and generate the actual DOM nodes depending upon it. And then we have patch. So runtime render walks the new DOM tree and compares it with old and updates or new DOM node. Okay. So this is also a theoretical explanation. Let's move on to the next slide and see the diagrammatic representation. Okay. So the thing is that what we have our template, and the template is getting compiled into render function code. Okay, so what this particular render function code returns, it returns a VDOM tree. Okay, and the runtime renderer invokes the render function. It walks through the return virtual DOM tree and then creates the actual DOM nodes depending upon it. So this particular step is performed as a reactive effect. So it keeps track of all the reactive dependencies that were used. Okay, and when the dependency used during the mount changes and the effect reruns, so this particular time, what happens, the updated VDOM tree is created. So the updated VDOM tree compares it with the old one, and it applies the necessary updates to the actual DOM. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. So here we can see the template syntax. Okay, so Vue.js uses HTML-based template syntax, and Vue compiles the templates into highly optimized JavaScript code. Okay, so every JavaScript developer must be aware of this fact that whatever framework and libraries that we are using, that is compiled into highly optimized JS code only. Okay, so these are some ways of template syntax. Like we have a couple of ways. That is, first one is text interpolation. The second one is raw HTML. Then the third one is attribute binding. Fourth one is using JavaScript expressions, and the fifth one is directives. So let's cover these points one by one. So moving on to the next slide. So we have the first point as text interpolation. So this is the most basic form of data binding, and it is also known as Mustak syntax. Okay. So text interpolation is nothing but Angular people must be aware of the term string interpolation. Okay. So the functionality is same, everything is same, just the naming convention is different. So this particular piece of code inside the span, that will return a plain text only. Okay, so the output will be the plain text only. What string interpolation does in Angular, text interpolation does in Vue.js. Okay, Then we have something called raw HTML. So raw HTML basically works as inner HTML, and what we exactly use for it, we use VHTML directive for this. Okay. So we have this piece of code inside the paragraph and span tag, and the message contains the particular text, that is, this is Vue.js session, and the style that we have applied is of color red. Okay. So what is the expected output here? I think you all must have guessed the output. So let me show you the next screen for the output. So using text interpolation, what we are getting the plain text only. Okay. That is string, and using VHTML directive, we are getting the text, and the style has been applied to it. So we have provided a color red, and that's why it has been in red. Okay. So moving on to the next, attribute binding. So basically, mustax cannot be used inside the HTML attributes, and instead of that, we use vbind directive. So what this particular piece of code is doing, inside the division, we are binding this div with the ID. Okay, using vbind. And then using JavaScript expression. So Vue actually supports the full power of JavaScript expressions inside all the data bindings. So basically, we can write in our template the JavaScript expression, like we have written number plus one. We are using the conditionals, like if okay, yeah, then yes, else no. And we are using the split, reverse, and join. These are core JavaScript methods. So we can use this inside our template only. Moving on to the next. So directives. Directives is a term I guess all the JavaScript developers must be aware of that. In Angular, we have been provided with built-in directives as ng4, ngf. So what Vue.js provides built-in directive as vbind and vhtml are some of them which are introduced. Okay. So the job of directives is to reactively apply updates to the DOM when the value of its expression changes. So we are taking the example of vif. So in this particular paragraph tag, what we have written, so if the scene variable is true, then you can see the text, that is now you see me. Okay. And v on is another example. So v on is basically used for event listening. So every JavaScript developer and whoever is learning JavaScript also must be aware of the term that is event handling, and that is very basic. So what we are doing on click of this particular section, we are calling a function. Okay. So how we are writing this in Vue.js. In Angular, we have click and on click provided. Okay. And here how we write it as v on colon click. Okay. So there is a shorthand for this also. Okay. Instead of writing v on colon click, we can use @ operator and simply write the click and then assign it to a function. Okay. Moving on to the next. So from this slides onwards, Devashri is going to cover. So over to you, Devashri.
Yes. So thank you, Rashmi, for the beautiful explanation. So actually, Rashmi has already explained us regarding the options API and composition API. But here are some basic differences between them, which are important to cover later with the state management. So basically, options API has like the data option where we declare the reactive state, and in composition API we are using ref method to declare the reactive state. Okay, in the options API we are using the methods option where the functions can be defined, and in composition API we are directly using function keyword to define the functions. In options API, we are calling the methods or performing some manipulations in mounted method, which is one of the life cycle. In composition API, we are using on mounted listener. Okay. So in the next slide, we will see the ref method example. Rashmi, can you just switch to the next slide? Yes, thanks. So in the next, here we have seen that we are importing ref method from the Vue.js, okay, Vue, and we are creating a reactive state by using this ref method. Okay, here we have assigned a default value that is 0. So it is nothing but we are creating a reference for this particular reactive state. And if we see the console.logs, in the first log we have printed count, where it is returning an object with the value of 0. Okay, and in the next console, we are printing console.value, where it is returning the value 0. Okay, but in this two console logs, there is a difference, that in the first we are getting the object, and in the second we are getting the actual value. So it is nothing but whenever we are creating a reactive state, we need to access that particular reactive state with the dot value property. Okay, and if we want to perform any operations on that particular state, we need to use dot value, and then we can perform the actions. Okay, in the next example, that is the setup example. So basically, when we have seen the example of the composition API and options API, we have seen that we have imposed setup keyword in the script tag. Okay, so here we are using setup method. So what is the difference? So basically, if we want to expose the particular reactive state to the template, then we need to use the setup method. Okay, so here we can see that we are creating a reactive state, we are returning it to the setup method and directly using to the template. So one thing you must have observed, that we are not using dot value property here. We are directly accessing the reactive state. Okay, so that is the difference between using the setup and directly calling the reactive state. Okay, in the next slide, we will see what is state management. So basically, state management is has the following parts, that is state, actions, and view. So basically, any component is divided into these three sections, that is state, actions, and view. Okay, so in the examples, we will see that how it is managed. So here we have options API example, and here we can see that we are creating a reactive state in the data section, which is a state. Okay, then in the methods section, we are incrementing the count. Okay, means performing some action. So that is the action section. And in the template, we are viewing that particular count, that is viewing the count. Okay, so that is the view section. So any component in the Vue.js is particularly is divided into these three sections, that is state, actions, and view. So here we will see the simple state management with Reactivity API. So basically, this Reactivity API object is supported only for the composition APIs. Okay, so if we have any method or maybe any reactive state that can be reused in multiple components, then that can be created, like in a shared file, and can be used in multiple components. So how we can achieve that? So we can create a JS file. Okay, and in one of the JS file, we have imported reactive object, and in that we have declared all the reactive states or reactive methods that can be used in multiple components. So basically, count is one of the variable or reactive state that can be used in component, and another one is the increment method. Okay, and but to access these methods or these states, we just need to use the object, and then we can call the property. Okay, so in the next example, we will see how we have imported the shared file. So in component A, we have just imported the store.js, and we are accessing the count reactive state. Okay, and in the second, that is component B.view, we are importing store and calling the increment method. Okay, so this is how we can create a shared file and use it into the multiple components. Now let's start with the demo. I request Rashmi to continue with the demo.
Okay. Thank you, Devashri, for the wonderful explanation of the slides. Let's quickly jump onto the implementation part. Now we'll see okay. So this is the basic, let me, one thing. Yes. So this is the basic structure of the project once it gets created. So let's discuss this one by one. So there comes node modules. So every JavaScript developers must be aware that what node module is, but those who are from non-JS backgrounds, I would like to introduce node modules, that it contains all the dependencies whatever we use inside our project. Okay, then we have the public folder. So inside the public folder, we have the index.html. So noted down that index.html is very important file. I'll come to this later on. Okay, then we have src. So what is src? Inside the src folder, we have all our source code of our project. Okay, And then we have assets folder. So inside the assets folder, what we do, we have our images and GIF, whatever we use for our project, that is static. Okay. Then we have components. So we are already aware that we need to create the component in order to build application in Vue. Okay. Then we have router. If you have selected router, then we will get this by default. Okay. Inside router, we have the router file also. Then I have created service manually. Then we have store for state management, that was also inbuilt. Then we have views, it was also inbuilt. Then we have app.view file. Then we have our main file, okay, main configuration file. And then we have, okay, there is style section that I have created manually. If you will select the test for test cases, you will get the folder generated, test folder, okay, for unit test cases. Then we have some lint files and we have package.json file, and inside package.json we all know what it contains. It has the scripts to run and build our application. And then we have dependencies, whatever libraries we have used for our project, then we have dev dependencies. Okay. So cool. This is the basic structure that gets generated when we hit the command to create the project. Okay. And okay, let's discuss the control flow. So what happens when I let me run the command npm run serve. Okay. Let's wait for a couple of seconds, like wait for the project to run. Okay. So what happens when we hit the port, that is localhost 808? Okay. Just allow me a moment. Okay, let's rerun the application. Cool. Okay. So when we hit the port, that is localhost 8081, uh, it quickly navigates to the index.html file. So I have already told that this is very important file. This is our entry point of the application. Okay. And what it contains, it contains the basic HTML. It has some meta text, it has links, it has title, body, script for JavaScript, no doubt. And then we have something interesting in line number 18. That is, in this particular division, we are providing the ID as app. So it is very clear that something is injected inside the app. Okay. And then we have some CDNs. Okay. So whatever CDN you need to import, you can import here only. Okay. So let's quickly jump to line number 18. So what exactly is getting injected inside this particular div? Okay. So after navigating to this file, it quickly jumps to main.ts file. So I have basically choose TypeScript. Okay. But if you'll go with default version of Vue 2 or Vue 3, then you will have main.js file in your project. Don't get confused. It's just difference of naming convention. Okay. So these both are same. And here what we are doing in main.js file. So basically we are importing app from Vue and we are importing router, store and everything. Okay. So whatever the libraries that we are going to import in our project, that we need to register inside the main.ts file or js file. Okay. So there is something in line number 23 that we can see. We have create app and we are passing app over here, and we have like dot component dot use store router and mounting the app. So basically what is happening here, in place of the ID of the app, it is mounting the app with store as well as router. So it means that uh, in the div, the app is getting injected automatically by the control flow. Okay. So how is the control flow working? It basically first navigates to index.html, then it navigates to main.js file or ts file, and then app.view is the root component of any Vue project. Okay. So what we have done here in app.view, so we have three sections, as Devashri and I also mentioned in slides also, that what is the structure of our Vue component. So we have our template section, we have our script section to write the JavaScript logic, and we have the style section for style part. Okay. So for better usability, you can import the style.scss file. You can have the different file. Okay. And what we are doing, we are not having any logic right now here in this particular component. Okay. So basically what we are doing, we are injecting the nav bar here. Okay. So uh, how we are importing, we are doing that, we have imported the nav bar from nav component, and we have registered the component like this in component section. Okay. And let me introduce one more thing. We are using options API in our demo project. Okay. We haven't gone for composition API right now. So basically, what is happening? We have injected navbar, and Angular people must be aware of the term that is router outlet. And here, router view does the same thing. Okay. Okay. And let me show you the router file first. Okay. So what are the pages that we are having? We can see in a router file. So this is the router folder, and inside that we get index.ts. And if you are using Vue 2 or Vue 3, you will get index.js only. Okay. So don't get confused again. And we have defined our routes inside the array. Okay. So the first route is for a homepage. The second is for users list. We are displaying the list of users. Then we are displaying the details of user. Then there is add user section. Then there is about. Okay. So let's see. The first page is our homepage. Okay. So where the homepage is? The homepage is inside the views section. Okay. So what we have done here is we have basic HTML only inside the template. Okay. And what we are having in about section, we are having the basic HTML only. Okay. So yes. Now let's move to the users, navigate to the users page. So here we are displaying the list of users. Okay. Let's quickly move to the component. Yeah. So this is the user list component. Okay. So how we are displaying the list of the users? We have written the basic HTML for that, and we have called an API of JSON placeholder API that we are using the dummy API. Okay. So how we are calling the API for that? I have manually created the folder using service. You can have different approaches of calling the API, but I have used service for that, and create a service for that, and then we have a set of methods. Okay. So at line number 1, we can see there is, I have imported Axios. So Axios, I have used for API callings, and Vue.js, you can use two ways to call an API. So one, you can use Axios, and the second, you can use JavaScript fetch. Okay. So yes, I have used Axios, and there is a different set of methods, like to get all the users, to get users by ID, to add users, and to delete user. Okay. So we will cover all these things one by one. Let's move on to the user list page. Okay. So what we have done here, we have written the HTML. Then inside the script section, what we are doing, basically we are importing the service. Okay, user service, and then we have the data. What is data? Data is basically a method, and that is returning an object. Okay. So inside data, we have defined a few variables like loading, error message. Okay. And we have defined the users array. So all these things are our state. Okay, every component has their own data, and these are the state of the component. Okay, and inside the method section, what we are doing, we have written a method to call an API. Okay, so basically what we are doing, we are calling API from the user service. Like you all must be aware of that, how to call an API. And then we have wrapped it our code inside the try catch block for the better error handling. And then, so there is not only one user, right? We have around 10 users. That is array of users. So what we have done, we have iterated over it over a for loop. Okay, and how we can iterate over a for loop. Okay, so Angular people must be aware that we have uh, ng for directive to iterate over a for loop. And here in Vue.js, there is nothing but the naming convention has changed. That is v for. The functionality is similar, so you guys can relate. So basically, what we are doing, we are iterating the users array over a for loop. And one more difference, that in Vue we need to provide some key. So the key is our ID basically. Okay, and then what we did, we have displayed ID, email, company name, website from the API data. And to navigate to the users ID, like details of users, what we did, uh, we have provided router link. Okay, so Angular people again aware of the term, that is a router link we used to write in camel case. And here nothing has changed, just you need to put a hyphen. Okay, so let's see how we are doing that. Okay, so here we are getting our list of users, and let's click on any of the name, and you will get the details of the user by passing the ID as path params. Okay, so let's move back. And there is one more section in the actions. We can see that there is delete operation. Okay, so how we are performing that? Okay, so here Devashree and I, again, we have covered this, that instead of v on, we can use @ operator. Okay, we have used that, and we are assigning the delete user method over here. Okay, so how we can delete a particular user? So the logic is simple. We can delete a particular using by their respective IDs. We have again called an API and did the same operation, like wrapped up our code and try catch block. Okay, so let's see how to delete. Let me delete one of the users. So yes, user has been deleted. Okay, now there is one more functionality to add user. Okay, so for that, what we did, let me show you the form also. Yes. So for that, what we did, we have created a basic HTML form. Okay. The way you used to work with form elements in Angular, React, or whatever the framework library you are using, the same way you can create the form here also. The only thing is, what we are doing, we are calling an API on the click of on submit method. Okay, add user, and we have defined the state inside the data. Okay, so these are our state, that is name, email, company, and location. Okay, and how we are setting the data. Okay, so in line number 65, we can see basically we need to set the data first in order to call any post API, and how we are binding it. So basically, to bind our data, we use V model here. So Angular people must be aware of ng model. Okay, the working is again same, everything is same. Instead of ng, put V and model. Okay, so this is how V model is used for two-way binding in Vue.js. Okay, and then what we did, we have called an API to add the data, and there is one more thing that we have covered. Okay, so you can see on line number 5 that on v on submit we use dot prevent. So in Angular we have event dot prevent default to prevent the page from reloading again. Here we use only dot prevent method. Okay, and on submit we are calling that. So basically, let me add some data. Okay. So this is how we have added our data successfully. And on that note, we are done with our demo section. Okay. So
Thank you, Rashmi, for the beautiful explanation. So I guess now most of us have, got an idea about Vue.js. Like at least we should have the basic idea now, like how Vue.js works, or maybe what is exactly the Vue.js is. So what all takeaways should be there from this session, or maybe from this PPTs? So basically, what we have done is, when we have started with the official documentation of Vue.js, and we have covered the basic fundamentals first. Okay, so if you are a new and you want to go with Vue.js technology, you can always start with the basic things, basic fundamentals, and you can try that simultaneously by building the project. Okay, so whatever things you are trying to learn, okay, you can build that simultaneously, and you will get an idea. Okay, so it will be good if you learn the particular technology as a group. If you are a fresher, or maybe two to three people are trying to learn the same technology, it will be easy if you try to learn in the group, and start with the new things. It will help you to solve your issues and doubts. Yes, let's move to our final curtain. And before that, anyone is having any questions, you can put that in a Q&A section. We will surely try to answer that. Yes. So I think we have one question from Karan. That is, can you explain more details about lifecycle hooks? Okay. So basically, Karan, we have not much covered regarding the lifecycle hooks, but yes, I can give some idea about lifecycle hooks here. So basically, lifecycle hook actually is nothing but the steps that component goes into various phases. Okay, so in this Vue.js, we have multiple lifecycle hooks. That is, before created, before mounted, before updated, before destroy. Okay, so most commonly used lifecycle hook in Vue.js is nothing but the mounted. Okay, so where we are performing some actions on this particular method, and rest of others are just initializing. Before created is nothing but whenever the instance is being created is initialized, before created is called. Okay, so created is called when once all the state related options are processed. Then before mounted is called right before the component is being mounted. Mounted is called when component has already been mounted. Okay, and updated is called when all the DOM tree related updations are performed. And destroy and before destroy are called while unmounting the component. So this is the basic idea of lifecycle loop. Yes. So there is another question from Ganesh, that is, where is the database in this application? So basically we have used the dummy APIs, okay, just for the demo purpose. So there is no database for particularly this application. Could you, like Chinmay has asked, could you please share the PPT? Chinmay, I cannot say right now, but we will try to share the PPT.
And all the resources that are there, mostly those will be shared on email itself if anyone have those questions. And yeah, we can take other questions, Devashri.
Yes, and there is another question. Does TypeScript is must use instead of JavaScript when building Vue.js apps?
yes, no, it is not necessarily important. It's up to your will. If you are comfortable, use TypeScript. If not, then continue with JS.
There's another question actually. Are you providing any training on Vue.js if we want? So basically, actually, these webinars that we held every month are just the learnings from the teams. So we are not officially providing any trainings, but yeah, we can see for this later on, maybe if we start. But for now, like, we are not explicitly providing the training.
Yeah. So what I was saying is I was working with all the major IT companies like Infosys, HCL, and Deloitte and other companies, and I've been coming out of Infosys and again rejoined and all that. I've been working with multiple technologies, with different projects and all that. But what I observed is, like, when you say .NET, you learn HTML, and then again you from HTML MVC merged to HTML. Then we got Angular, we got React, and all that. So now they are saying Vue.js. Okay, so tomorrow there can be any other JS like that will come, like it can be ZJS or some other new thing that will coming actually. So there is no, so there should be some commonality in learning. Okay, so we cannot keep on learning like since the framework is coming. Okay, so the first thing is how to relate and learn. Okay, that is one thing. Like example, you say like in an NG model, you have V-hyphen model. Okay, you told that, but is it worthier for people who are having more experience about 10 years to keep on learning new frameworks? And if at all you learn Vue.js, I see a lot of projects having like Vue.js with Laravel or some other thing, okay, where they are not using .NET as a backend, they are using Laravel. Okay, I guess we saw some requirements actually coming up. So I'm really not sure like whether putting an effort to learn from, I know Angular, I know bit of React basics, and I'm familiarized with hands-on with Angular and .NET. So basically, like in terms of projects, whether we'll be getting more, and in terms of learnability, like is it worthier to learn Vue.js? Is my question that I'm just getting in my mind, and I've just attended this session to gain knowledge, but I have questions in this mind, so will you be able to answer
Yeah,
my
I
question?
I got your point, Harish, that many technologies are coming, many frameworks are coming around, and like why should we go for Vue.js, or it is worth learning Vue.js or not? So basically, what is happening? Sometimes our project or maybe the applications are having some requirements which are suitable for some technologies. Like if we are building a large application, then always go for Angular or maybe React. But if we want maybe small applications, or maybe you want to just make the static pages or maybe some small functionalities, then you can go with Vue.js, right? So this is in the learning phase. So basically, we are just learning the new technologies, whatever technologies are coming in the market. We are just trying to learn that.
On your point, Harish, that every new day, or every single day new technology keeps on adding up. Even for if you're taking the languages, either JS or TS, first we had React, then other languages came up. Even React Native, if you see, it's in the coding language is JavaScript. And like if I talk about this, and since you are in this session, then you are definitely interested in learning the technology. So that's the first point. And the second thing is, when you are into the technical team, you already have that mindset that like things will keep on changing or adding up, and you'll have to upgrade it accordingly to keep yourself at pace with whatever is changing. And another example, like in lame manner, I can also give, if in old times when there was a stone age, people used to live like that. But since technology improved and things came up, we changed our lifestyles as well, like, right? So similarly, on technology level as well, like whether it's languages or whatever, we need to keep upgrading ourselves for growth. So that is important anytime. I hope like I answered your question.
I want to add one more point. So whatever the frameworks that are emerging in JS, the core is JavaScript only. That's why we try to, even Devashri and I, we try to relate with Angular, we try to relate with React, so that it would be relatable and it will be easy to learn. Okay, like this we used to do in Angular, and like this we can do this in Vue. So this is how learning comes, like you can learn the things in faster way, just relate with the things. The logic is same, everything is same, just you need to learn the syntactical differences basically. Okay, so there's nothing much to worry about it. The core is JavaScript only. If that is clear, rest all will be clear.
So if you have any queries or any doubts, you can always reach us to this email addresses, so that we can solve your questions. Okay, thank you all for joining.